In this episode of the UX Tea Break, I look at focus groups and explain why you shouldn't be running them. This particular question comes from Isha Khan, and Isha asks, my team have tasked me with running a focus group to better understand user needs. What should I do? So based on the introduction, Isha, you'll be clear, I think, that what I would encourage you to do is to not run a focus group at all. There's no role for focus groups in your UX research methods toolbox. There's a few reasons for this, but first of all, let me define what I mean by a focus group. So a focus group is where you get along about a dozen users of your product or expected users, and you ask for their opinions and attitudes either about the domain that you're designing for or about the product itself that you've put together. And that's problematic for a few reasons. But the most important reason is that the best UX research methods, you watch people doing the thing. The thing in this instance would be the meaningful activity that they engage in, that you're designing a product for. If you were later on in design and you actually had a product, doing the thing would be using the product itself. In other words, the best UX research methods, they focus on behavior, not opinions and attitudes. Opinions and attitudes are what you're going to get from a focus group, but it's worse than that because you're also going to find in a focus group the things that are easy for people to articulate. And the things that are easy for them to articulate may not be the important things that are driving behavior. Now, as a UX researcher, we need to scratch below the surface. We can't just listen to the top of mind ideas that come from people's heads. We've got to understand what's driving those. And you do that by doing behavioral based research, either field visits to understand user needs or usability testing to understand how people struggle or not when they're using a product that you've designed. Now, I've said you shouldn't be running a focus group at all, but what if you've already planned the focus group? 12 people are going to arrive tomorrow, you've got the room booked, people are going to come along and observe what goes on. What should you do then? Well, all is not lost, because what I recommend you do is you turn the focus group instead into a user workshop. Now, a user workshop, you still have 12 users that come along to a room, but now rather than ask for their opinions and attitudes, what you do is you get them to do stuff that's relevant and interesting for your own UX research methods. For example, what I would do is I'd take my dozen people, I'd split them into 3 groups of 4 people, and I'd give each group a different activity to work on. So for the first group, for example, I might get them to create a persona that describes people like them with their job title or however you've grouped them. You're going to need to brief them on what you mean by a persona, but let's be honest, it's a 5 or 10 minute briefing for people to understand what that is. The second group, I might get those to create a user journey map. I might get them to describe a kind of a day in the life, split it down task by task. What is it? What are the different things that they go through when they're doing this meaningful activity? Again, you're going to need to brief them on what you mean by a user journey map, but for most people, it's something they can grasp fairly quickly. And for your third group of users, what you could get them to put together are kind of agile-based user stories. As a user, I want to so that I can. And that way you'll get them not only to identify what their key tasks are, as a user I want to do this thing, but you'll find out why they want to do that. You'll help them uncover some kind of a goal behind it, because I want to. And then at the end of that session, I've got personas describing my users, I've got a user journey map describing a day in the life, and I've got agile user stories that I can start doing some work around as well. So that gives me something useful out of that session that I've had with users, rather than something which at the best will mislead the development team, which is what we're going to get with a focus group. Well, I hope you found that useful. If you did, please leave a comment below, and if you have any questions, then please post those in the comments, and hopefully I can get to one of those in a future tea break video.